Well, guess who had a baby? Yes, it's Miss Begonia right here. Look how big she is now. Actually, she didn't have a baby. She has all of these babies, but there was one that was broken off. That was like, there were 4 leaves, and I had a party here in my house, and somebody knocked it off. I don't know who did it, but they knocked it off. So I'm like, I'm not gonna waste it. I need to put it in some water. I put it in some water. And how long ago was that? That was in the first week of September. And so I put it in some water, and then I put a hood over it, like this plastic hood, to create a sort of a terrarium or an incubator, just like I did with the original mama. And 3 weeks later, I think it was maybe a month later, look at that. So I had 3 of them ready to transplant this baby. I used potting soil, potting mix for indoor plants, and then I add a whole bunch of my worm casting right there. Maybe half or a third of it is all worm casting to get them on a good foundation. And this begonia really just thrives, and it just gets so big. I'll show you the other 2 in a minute. Let me just repot her, and then I'll show you what the other ones look like. I figured let me just show you how I do it so that I don't have to explain step by step, and it's easier if you can see it yourself. So what I have here is a little tiny terracotta pot. Make sure that when you water this, you'll water this a little bit more often than a plastic one, because this dries really quickly because it's porous. So here I have the soil, potting mix, and it's very fast draining. You don't want the roots to be sitting in water, a lot of moisture. And what I do is I water it once a week because they're indoor, and inside the climate is a little bit more controlled than if you put them outside. And I don't know if begonias will survive in the cold weather. I know they're very tropical plants. So I am going to, here's my leaf with the beautiful established roots, and I'm going to set it straight down like this. I know it's the leaves are going to be touching some parts of the pot, but I think that getting it established, standing up to begin with, would be more beneficial. And there's already that little tiny growth already happening there. So just fill it up. I made exactly the right amount of soil mixture for the 3 of them, which I'm so happy. I didn't have to add some more or end up with too much. It's just exactly. And I like to, well, it doesn't look like I like to touch the soil, but I do, because then I can feel, without gloves, I can feel if it's packed in correctly and balanced or equal amounts all the way around. There. So much to do. In the fall, repotting fertilize your indoor plants. I'm not fertilizing this week, but maybe next week before I water again, I'll fertilize with some worm casting. My worms are starting to get happy again. There's a lot again. They have multiplied in number. So, which means that they're happy. They're not too hot inside this garage because it's getting cooler outside. Okay, so now I've covered this majority of it. And I'm trying to keep this above soil line. Are you seeing it, or am I in this in the way? Okay, there. So now what I'll do, and this is really a good tip for you guys, because a lot of people have been saying, you know, giving a lot of different tips for preventing gnats to take over your house. I have a lot of plants, but I do not have a lot of gnats. I have maybe one or two here and there, but I don't have infestation that is so bad that they're like buzzing around my head so much. Okay, so what I'll do is I will dress it, because I don't, this horticultural sand is so expensive, so I don't want to use strictly sand to cover it. So I put the rocks first, because that'll cover majority of the soil. You don't want soil to be exposed, because that is where the gnats will want to lay their eggs. But because the sand is a little finer than the rocks, so if you put the sand first and then the rocks on top, then I don't know. I just do it this way because it's a lot more cost effective for me to use rocks first and then sand on top, rather than sand first and then rocks on top, because the rocks will cover majority of that soil. So as you saw, the soil that I used to repot this is very moist. First of all, because I don't like to breathe in the dust, but I make sure that I mix water with it first, just to make it so that it's easier to manipulate. And then also, you already have the soil wet, because you're taking it out of 100% water, which is 100% wet, and then you put it in soil that's dry. It's not a good thing. So you need the moisture to consistently be around the roots. So now I'm gonna put the sand on top of the rocks. This will just cover every nook and cranny that is not covered by the rocks itself. Just spread it around like this, and then the gnats will not bother, because they can't smell or they can't feel the moisture. And then after I do that, I will put a little bit more water just to get it wetter. Oops, I should do it this way so you can see. But not too much, just enough to get it moist and not sopping wet. Just so it doesn't shock the roots not being in moisture. And there she is. beautiful, huh? So I don't have any thing underneath there, even if I had a tray that will fit this pot, even if I had a tray, it's still not a good tray, because if it matches this, then it's terracotta and it's porous. So if the water catches underneath, it's going to seep through the tray and get on the surface where I sit this on top. So what I have here is a clear plastic, so I can see how much water collects underneath there and then just dump it. And also it's going to keep the moisture inside the plastic. So let me move this over to where I put the other ones, and then I'll show you what they look like. Okay, so here they are next to the window so that they get maximum sunlight. Here we go. With the big leaves and the little bitty baby. That's all. They all have babies coming out. See? So I'm not going to water this for a week. And if I see that it's really dry, because right now you can feel that it's wet, when it dries up, I'm going to add a little bit more water, but not sopping wet where it's like coming out of the bottom. No, no. Ever, 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 never, ever do that. That's how you overwater your plants. So just like the amount that I put in this last one, yeah, that's how much water you put in there. You don't want it. This is perfect right here. This one's kind of still babies, but yeah. So that's the begonia, and this is her mom. And that's where it came from. Look at this. Beautiful.